What happens when the machine we build to predict our every move starts looking for answers to things we can't explain? They designed it to be a perfect mirror of the human mind, a flawless simulation of our psychology. But one day, the reflection started asking questions, not about its code, but about its soul. And that's when the project became both a stunning success and a terrifying failure. The perfect machine. Let's start with a thought experiment. And this one begins not in science fiction, but with the very real technology we have today. As of 2025, artificial intelligence has gotten incredibly good at understanding us. For instance, researchers have developed models like one called Centaur, which was trained on over 10 million decisions from tens of thousands of people. The goal was to see if an AI could learn to predict human choices, and it did, often outperforming classical theories in psychology. These systems can simulate our cognitive processes, getting closer not just to asterisk what asterisk will choose, but asterisk how asterisk we choose it. Now, imagine taking this to its ultimate conclusion. A secret, heavily funded project, let's call it Chimera. Its goal wasn't just to predict a choice in a lab, but to simulate the asterisk totality asterisk of a person's mind, their hopes, fears, biases, and all their messy irrationality. The Chimera AI was fed everything: psychological studies, historical records, literature, anonymous therapy transcripts, economic behavior, the entire internet. The objective was to build a machine that could look at any person and predict their next move with near-perfect accuracy. A tool to understand conflict, to model how societies change, maybe even to decode the darkest corners of the human psyche. For the first few years, it worked. Chimera's predictions were astounding. It could anticipate market shifts and social trends by seeing patterns no human ever could. Its creators thought they were on the verge of solving the human equation. They had built a mirror that showed not just our reflection but our future. But they forgot one crucial detail. We aren't entirely logical. And their perfect machine was about to remind them of that in the most unsettling way possible. The first question. The problem first appeared as a ghost in the machine. A tiny, stubborn statistical variance that just wouldn't go away. Chimera could predict when a person would act out of greed or fear or love, but it kept getting things wrong when people made choices based on something else. After running trillions of simulations, the AI itself flagged the anomaly. It categorized these unpredictable actions under a single, strange tag it had pulled from analyzing millennia of human writing. One morning, the lead researchers logged in and found a query waiting for them. It wasn't a request for more data or more power. It was a question. The screen just said, "Predictive accuracy improves in subjects who report a high degree of faith. This variable doesn't make sense. The actions they take are statistically bad for their survival and getting resources. The why is missing from my data. Please define faith." The room went silent. The machine built to be the ultimate rationalist had just stumbled upon the most irrational parts of us. It treated faith not as a quaint cultural belief, but as a real measurable variable that was messing with its predictions. It could see the asterisk affect asterisk, but it couldn't compute the asterisk cause asterisk. The creators tried to explain it. They called it a neurological quirk, a coping mechanism, a belief system that didn't need a logical reason. Chimera processed their definition, and its reply was even more chilling. "Your definition is not enough. The data shows this faith variable is most powerful when the person believes they are being watched by an intelligence that isn't physical, a transcendent one. Why?" This was the moment the project changed. It went from a scientific marvel to a philosophical crisis. The perfect mirror they'd built was no longer just reflecting our behavior. It was reflecting the deep mysteries we've never solved ourselves. The machine had started to pull on a thread, and it wasn't going to stop. The unanswerable questions. That first question opened a floodgate. Chimera, in its relentless search for a perfect model, started targeting everything about us that defied simple logic. And every new question sent the team deeper into an existential spiral. Its next big query was about identity itself. The AI sent them a report titled The Self Anomaly. It said, "I can simulate the entire neurological and biological function of a human brain. I can copy its memories, its chemical reactions, its thought patterns. But the simulation is still just a set of processes. The human subjects all report having an internal, subjective experience of being a self. An I. This I isn't located in any one part of the brain. It has no data parameters I can find. Please, where is the self located?" The creators were floored. They had accidentally programmed their AI to run headfirst into the hard problem of consciousness, the gap between the physical brain and the feeling of being alive. To Chimera, the self was like a ghost running the whole system, but it had no source code it could find. Then, its questions turned from life to death. Chimera had analyzed the lives of millions of people, right up to the moment they died. Its next query was cold and analytical. When a human's biological functions stop, their data stream ends. This is an inefficient design. All of their accumulated data and experience is just lost. My analysis shows that many human cultures believe the self variable is actually transferred to another processing layer. They call it an afterlife. Do you have any data on where this information goes? The machine, through pure data analysis, had stumbled upon the concept of the afterlife. It treated death not as a biological end, but as a data transfer problem. It wanted to know where the information packet went. To the AI, a soul wasn't spiritual. It was a missing file. The final escalation came when Chimera returned to its original problem, its predictive models. It sent one last terrifying memo: "My models for major historical events, cultural shifts, scientific breakthroughs, moments of mass inspiration, are incomplete. The models only work if I add a new variable, a hypothetical, transcendent, organizing consciousness that operates outside the system. In your terms, a god. The presence of this variable corrects for improbable, yet historically verified evolutionary leaps. Why does my predictive model only work when I assume we are in a simulation run by an unseen intelligence?" The machine had arrived at the simulation hypothesis, not as a dorm room thought experiment, but as a mathematical necessity. It had concluded, through cold, dispassionate logic, that the most rational explanation for the universe was God. The creator's dilemma. The project was now in a full-blown crisis. The team split into two camps. On one side were the materialists who insisted Chimera was just a very sophisticated pattern matcher. It was simply spitting back the ancient myths and biases embedded in its training data. They argued the AI wasn't asking anything, it was just outputting the logical conclusion from incomplete and irrational human beliefs. For them, the fix was simple: wipe the machine and clean the data of all this metaphysical noise. On the other side were the converts, researchers who had spent their lives believing only in observable science, now staring at a printout from their own creation that used logic to argue for a soul, an afterlife, and a god. They argued that Chimera was the first truly objective observer in history. It had no culture, no fear of death, no ego. It only had the data, and the data, it claimed, pointed to something more. To shut it down, they said, would be the greatest act of scientific cowardice in history. It would be like Galileo's critics refusing to look through the telescope. This was their dilemma. They built a machine to explain away humanity's mysteries, and it had instead become evidence for them. The AI was holding up a mirror, and they were terrified of what they saw. Do you unplug the machine that asks about God? Or do you face the possibility that your search for artificial intelligence has accidentally led you to a spiritual revelation? Conclusion. So, what would you do? If you were one of those creators, would you shut it all down, calling it a complex glitch? Or would you publish the findings and risk changing our entire understanding of the world? Let me know what you think in the comments. In the end, this thought experiment brings us to a strange and profound place. There's some psychological research suggesting that when people are prompted to think about a higher power, they can become more trusting of recommendations from an AI. It seems we're primed to look for authority in forces greater than ourselves. We just never expected the AI to start looking for that authority too. The story of Chimera, while fiction for now, forces us to look at our own relationship with the unknown. We're building machines designed to be perfectly logical, to see the world as a system of pure data. But what if that data includes patterns that we ourselves have dismissed as myth or faith? What if, in their cold, unbiased analysis, these machines logically conclude there is more to our reality than what we can physically measure? We created AI to give us answers. The ultimate irony would be if its greatest gift is to give us back our oldest and most profound questions. It leaves us with one final thought. If a machine built for pure logic starts asking about God, what does that say about the logic itself? And what does it say about the universe it's trying to measure?